You, ladies and gentlemen, that those of you who would like to follow us on Twitter, you can do so on hashtag DQ Live. Also, we've got feedback forms on our tables. So please make sure that you fill up the feedback forms. We will be collecting them in the evening. And your feedback is very important for us for all our future offerings. So please make sure you fill those up. Now, earlier in the morning, Satish had also told you about the CXO, Coffee with CXO. So this is something different, something interesting. Unfortunately, we could not get Karan over here to do the Coffee with Karan. So we have one of us doing the Coffee with CXO. We are already doing that offline, that is in one of the rooms behind. But in the afternoon, at around 3 o'clock, when we are having the round table, at the same time, we will also have this on stage. So in case somebody would like to volunteer to come on stage, you are welcome to do so. These will be very simple questions, very generic questions, nothing related to the IT industry. As Satish said, it would be something like, a day in the life of an IT industry person. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we are indeed honored to have with us our next speaker. We have Mr. Javed Abidi, Director, National Center for Promotion of Employment for Disabled People, that is NCPEDP. Javed is the Director of the National Center for Promotion of Employment for Disabled People in India and the founder of the Disability Rights Group. He has been pivotal in creating political and social visibility for an invisible constituency and has been instrumental in empowering it legally and economically. Most vitally, by facilitating bridges in a landscape marked by fissures and islands, he has catalyzed India's first cross-disability movement. Ladies and gentlemen, please get your hands together as Mr. Javed Abedi joins us on stage.
Thank you. Is it on? Yeah, it's on. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. As I have been introduced, my name is Javed and I belong to the disability space. I'm myself a person with disability and I've been working in the area of disability for the last more than 20 years, I think. It's not altogether an unusual audience for me because we have spoken to the corporate sector in the past. We like to talk to the corporate sector as much as we can. But for you, perhaps it may be a slightly unusual experience, especially at a conference like this, which is all about technology and all the I guess good things, important things in life to have a speaker talking on an unusual subject. But I would hope that you would bear with me for the next 10 or 15 minutes and try to understand the message that I have brought for you or I'm trying to convey to an audience like you today afternoon. See, first of all, at the very outset, people with disabilities are as much citizens of India as anyone else. So let's get that straight. This is not about charity, this is not about pity, this is not about any doles or any extras. Second point, which is extremely important for an enlightened audience like this, is that we are talking of a very large number of people. Conservative estimates suggest that in a country as big as India, we are talking of some 60 to 70 million Indians who are affected by one disability or the other. So you just put two and two together and we are able to lay the basic ground for what I'm trying to say or what I'm trying to argue. First of all, that there is a very large population, 60 to 70 million people. It's for us as Indians, it's for us as policymakers, it's for us as decision makers to decide that do we really want to keep such a large chunk of our population outside the mainstream? And is it going to benefit India? Is it going to benefit the so-called progress and development of India when you have such a large number of people just sitting at home and supposedly lying on a charpoy and depending on some kind of a charity and pity to be thrown at them? The second is the human rights argument to say that, well, I'm a citizen of India. And why do I talk about the rest of the 70 million? Let me talk about myself to say that I am as much a citizen of this country as you are. And I have as much right over this country as you do. It's as simple as that, really. So when I say that I want to step out of my house and I want to go around the city of Delhi or the city of Gurgaon or the rest of India as conveniently or as without hindrance as you do, then is that an unreasonable demand? For me to say that I want to go to school, for me to say I want to go to college, to go to a university, to go to a technology institution, to an IIT or APTEC. And then, obviously, my desire to study is the same as the rest of the young people. And if I have studied, if I have been lucky, by hook or by crook, and we'll come to that in a moment, then obviously I would want a job. Because the one aspiration that all of us have is to be self-reliant. And unless I have a job, I will not have income. Unless I have income, I will not be self-reliant. So it's a whole cycle of life. In my case, in the case of the disabled people, a vicious kind of a circle which somewhere needs to be broken. And it's all connected. So first of all, I would focus on accessibility to say that unless disabled people, unless disabled children, unless disabled youth are able to get out of their homes and be able to reach educational institutions, the rest of the discourse is meaningless. Let's not talk about the empowerment and equality and the rest of it. It's just simply not possible if a boy or a girl cannot get out of the house and cannot reach an educational institution. And then I ask you a question, how many schools can you think of in India, even in the big cities of India, which are accessible to a wheelchair user like me? Think of any good school, semi-good school, bad school that you can think of or where your children or your loved ones may be going to. How many schools are there where a wheelchair user like me, simple desire, no charity, no pity, no doles, no quota, no subsidy, nothing. I am saying I will pay the same fees as any other person. I need admission, I want admission. I need to go around the school, I need to get into the classroom, I need to go to the library. And the same for the college, the same for the university. So where did we go so horribly wrong? We are a supposedly modern country, we are a democracy. We were lucky to have reasonably envisioned leadership without any political commentary attached. And people like Nehru and Indira Gandhi and everybody else who was at the helm of policy were Western oriented, they traveled abroad. And why pick on names? I mean, any policy maker, decision maker. So then bringing this discourse to your industry, many of the doyens belonging to your sector are now setting up colleges and universities. Of course, the famous NIIT is there or APTEC is there or other. Should we do an audit of all the NIITs across the country and find out how many are accessible, how many are barrier free, where a person like me can go and study if I wish to. And then it's not only about people with mobility impairments, what about people with visual impairments? And we have technology today, we have technology in the world, I'm sure many of you must be perhaps aware of it, where all the things that we talk of, from accessing computer to sending out emails to the most complex operations that one can think of, websites, are all accessible. The technology is there. I'll give you one simple example. The websites that we have in India, just in the government sector, more than 5,000 I am told, none of those websites, including the private sector, are accessible to a person with visual impairment. So a person like you or even me in this case can get onto the net and can go and book a rail ticket, can apply for a passport, can book a ticket at PVR wherever, but not a visually impaired person. This would not be the case in the US, or this would not be the case in Europe. This would not be the case in South Africa. This would not be the case in many countries of Asia Pacific, because they have stringent laws. Because if you were to do that, then somebody is going to sue you for millions of dollars. Then those applications are applied because it's mandatory, because it's a requirement. But when the same work is being done for India and Indians, it's not done. Which in itself is interesting, because 77 to be specific. Was applicable only to the C category and the D category jobs. To 1995, another 2 decades plus minus 18 years. First, everything that was humanly possible by creating barriers, by leaving me out of the educational mainstream, by leaving me out of the employment scenario. Sitting in of which the jobs opened up. And thanks to that, today in civil services, many of you would be surprised, we now have got people with disabilities. people who have orthopedic disability are now in the civil services. And the time does not permit me to go into greater details, but in case it's surprising you or perhaps rankling you, and it's like, collector langda ho sakta hai, you know. Examples upon examples upon examples of the civil service in the Western world, in countries around our region, in China, in even Pakistan, South Africa, I have already mentioned, who follow a much more progressive and a equitable, inclusive policy than us. So majority of the jobs are now in the private sector. Now at that time there was this very interesting debate about what would be our policy vis-a-vis the private sector. To turn the person down just because of your own bias or just because of your own discrimination or just the government of India has been very foolish in that regard, and the less we talk about that, the better. But the but not on disability. Today, CII has a policy on disability. How much of it is followed by the member companies is a separate story altogether, but they do have a policy. NASSCOM dragged its feet the most. Of cyber media was one of the people who was at the forefront of that fight, fighting with me shoulder to shoulder to say to NASSCOM, to say to Mr. Som Mittal, who was then the president, I say many of them, so that's the good news. What makes me unhappy is that they're still an exceptional job. How do we examine this entire issue? So on one hand, I'm happy that it's possible. How do we grow this movement? That is the challenge. How do we grow this movement? How do we ensure that every single employer in this country In America, when I'm from Aligarh, which is a town. Did my degree in mass comm, and like any aspiring young person,